Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Corn Sunday as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on YouTube. This is from Wu Bai and China Blue titled White Dove, and we're going to listen through it from start to finish. I'm going to hear what we think. Let's go. I feel like I've reviewed this before. This song is sounding familiar to me for some reason. I want to give a shout out to the quality of the vocal double tracking here. He's sounding really good. Like, it's really tight there. It's really well done. I think the solemn nature of the piano communicates quite a bit emotively there. It works really well alongside the guitars, bass, and drums. Excellent 16th note groove on the hi-hats. There's a great unison between the vocals and piano as well, with the note choices and some of the tones. Interesting drum fill there. It's so kind of amazing how subtle the hi-hat groove is with those kind of plink plonk grace notes on the piano there. It's I don't mean to interrupt in the middle. Great low note there, nice rumble to it. We're kind of iterations on that main theme there melodically, with some string and piano parts being there last time with the octaves, and now with the synth range being in the mid to high there. Great sense of compositional diversity there. Oh, a major tone. To call and response. Guitar solo as well as piano. Tremendous. Excellent. No, I'm really happy with the song. I'm really grateful for the chance to listen through it as well as to watch the video, because the video itself was quite interesting to sort of partake in. We're going to have a look at the lyrics. I'm going to check this track out in the conclusion. We'll discuss it further in the conclusion. So here we go, White Dove by Wu Bai China Blue. Got the lyrics here. There is no direction ahead of me. There are no clothes in my body. Fresh blood oozes from the wings. My tears soaked my chest wet. Wow. Okay. Flying is wild, bearing the pain, escaping the gun of the hunter. Oh, damn. See, this is kind of wild. So you feel like he's like an animal that's just managed to escape, right? My feelings are frozen. My feet are numb. Dear mother, dearest friend, I will live on dignified, the silent earth and the silent sky. The fresh blood continues to flow. Though I am forever wounded, I still have my freedom. So is it about being in a place where you are captured or where you are stuck, either physically or psychologically? Well, no, it's mostly physically, right? But the idea is that psychologically you're free because you're not actually in the chains that are on you, if that makes sense. You've had your wings clipped and you've been struggling, but you're not actually completely broken by it. Yeah, I get it. You know, like you talk about the lines of fly, fly in the skies are ruthless, wind blow even harder. I am not scared and I'm not weak. I trickle on the wondrous path. Yeah, see, this is great. This is great. Thanks to Corn Sunday for the translated lyrics. This is my pride, carefree under the sunlight, white clouds seep under my footsteps. A haggard visage waving my wings and never looked back. Okay, I get it. I get it. All right, we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Wu Bai China Blue, titled White Dove. Now, what do I think this track is about? As I mentioned in the lyric section, should I say, I think it's about someone who is having a really sort of tough time with coping with the situation they're in. They've been damaged or hurt or like they've been affected physically, like really hurt by something, but they're not allowing it to stop them from being free. You know, even though there are chains on them, even though there are things stopping them from having the ability to live life maybe the way they want to, like they're still going to try and do their best to get past it. They know that the blood is still flowing, they know they're still alive, and they're not allowing themselves to be taken alive, if that makes sense. I think that that's a really beautiful story. It's probably a gross oversimplification, but that's a really beautiful story if it is the case. The vocals from this track, from I assume to be Wu Bai, if I'm not mistaken, are tremendous. They are double-tracked. They've got a great glow to them. He's a solid singer as per not only the quality of the double-tracked vocals as soon as the verse, but also just a really compelling melodies and harmonies that he puts forward. I suppose harmonies as well in the chorus and verse sections there. We had an interlude as well where we kind of worked alongside the more kind of majorish turn there, but ultimately it was more of a kind of there was a sense of sadness in his voice, but You got the impression that he was still just kind of coming to terms with the situation, not allowing it to sort of like stop him. You got the impression from Wu Bai that he deeply relates to the story that he's trying to sing, and so the performance comes through quite authentically. Sorry, I just had to get some water. My throat was really dry. That's what happens when you don't record. You need to make sure you drink water when you do vocal stuff. Yeah, no, the guy's a great singer, and ultimately it was just a really compelling performance there, very authentic sounding. We harmonized neatly with the backing arrangement, and I think that, yeah, really comfortable in his head and chest voice. There was not note out of place. There was a consistency with the way he sung that made me sort of like feel as if that was his kind of style there, the way he typically did things, and if that's the case, it's very effective. The track itself at 6:05 it's quite long. It's well outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot I usually have for tracks. But with that said, I think that the way we handled things with a mixture of different guitar, bass, drum, string, piano, and synth parts later on was wonderful. We didn't have them all at the same time. We had some sort of synthy pad stuff coming with some guitars as well. The drums with that 16th note shuffle eventually, as well as the bass. Some extra sort of guitar arpeggios on the side. Our parts with the leads there. And then we had the rest of the band come together in that chorus section. And then afterwards, we had like a section where we might have, again, like the string focus with the guitars. Or we might have like a sort of a soloist section with piano leads, like a piano solo near the end. And then we had the guitars coming in there with 2 sort of guitar solos or 2 solo instruments at the same time, calling out to each other, almost as if one was trying to sort of like get the attention of the other and they started to interact, I suppose, as if they were both free as birds. I think the white dove being the fact that Wu Bai wants peace and finds peace within themselves. Even if their wings are clipped, they're still trying to find peace internally, if anything else. But I think that beyond that, like structurally, you know, there was enough room for the verses and the choruses to make sense together. We had instrumental parts in between to flesh things out and keep things more interesting. We had a similar theme the entirety of the time, which I'll talk about a bit later on, with a very similar bass line and chord progression throughout. There were variations on the turns, like there was also an occasion, like a different sort of major split later on in the piece for the interlude. You know, like it was just enough though. I think a lot of the variety within this piece compositionally came from the differences in the instrumental layering. It was also about the storytelling from Wu Bai as well. Those were the focal points. But if I talk about a few of the instruments specifically, I just think the guitars there with the leads, whether it was the arpeggios or like the sort of soloish bit at the end, we really had an instrument which typically is played quite a lot in music like this, and it's often a staple of the style and of the genre. And I think to allow it to be a bit more subtle and to allow things like the intro synth pad, for example, to come through, to allow us to be secondary to the vocal melody by like being sort of more quiet on the sides there in the verse sections. And then, yeah, like, it's cool, man. And even in that solo section, they weren't super duper intense. Like, they were kind of alternate notes to what the piano was doing with a lot. Like, the piano solo was ascending, right? And the guitars were sort of swirling around that a little bit as like a secondary sort of foil to it. And I kind of dig the fact that it was minimalist. I think that if we'd had more to it, I think that it would have maybe taken away from other key lead elements there. So I think it was really well handled there. It was very palatable and the major minor keys that they were related to, and it was dope. The key parts were great on the piano there. There was a lot of activity going on with that, almost as much as a piano in certain bits, but just the compelling right hand melodies articulating notes of the triads present on the left side there with 16th note rhythmic patterns there were solid. They were compelling. We had a little bit of we had movement throughout there in various positions, not a huge amount of diversity there, but that it really did start to sparkle when it got into that lead layer there, the solo section and the later bit there, and we really heard what they could do on the keys, especially that right end there in the treble clef. The drums were wonderful. I love the 16th note groove for a lot of the track there. I thought it was fantastic with the offbeat kicks and snares and such. It had such a fantastic, almost like pad-like effect because of the smoothness of it, the consistency of those hits there. There was a little bit of the fill transitions. You could tell that they were playing in a studio. Like they weren't absolutely specifically 1000% on the click, but like that made it a bit more real. Because of that, you know, you're instantly like, they were so tight with those hi-hats, and then just like the slightest bit off there in the fill. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm like the god of drumming or whatever. It's just stuff you can hear when you review stuff. but I enjoy it. I think that they're still a fantastic drummer, and I think it almost improves the experience. It definitely would have been better if they'd like quantized it to shit, you know. But I think that, yeah, the drums were fantastic. Relatively, like, we stayed with those 16th hi-hats for most of it. I think it was worthwhile. It was palatable. It provided a sense of continuity underneath the key and guitar parts. The bass as well. I didn't really hear it until later on there. A bit more prominent, I think, in the solo sections as well as the later verses and choruses. And it was nice to be able to sort of absorb it and hear it independent of those there. We didn't just play the root notes. There was a little bit of flexibility with some of the stuff going on in between the chords when they were played or when the drums were hit there. There were some cooler responses, even very, very occasionally there. And in addition to the synth pads, like we had synth pads at the start and then we had like some sort of synthy leads later on. And it was nice to have cooler response where there'd be like a vocal line and then the synth would like kind of respond to that and then backwards and forwards, that being cooler response. I thought it was great to have the interaction between instrumental elements, especially as we already had a couple of leads there. It was just a little bit more intriguing and fascinating. With all that considered, we have a piece here where everything came together rather succinctly and neatly there. The way that it started with a minor and boom, 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 boom. Or did it start with a major? It had a minor tone to it overall there. Boom, boom, boom. It did start with a minor, but it had lots of major and minor chords in there with the sort of triads arpeggiated. And it was intriguing in a sense that like it sounded sort of like not melancholic, but like we were coping with the way that we felt those negative feelings there. It was a sense of calm sadness there, almost like we had been crying and we had been sort of like grieving, but that like when the major tone came later on there, we switched to a major chord at the end of the resolution or the line. It was almost like, hey, things have turned around, things are improving, we've finally gotten out of our cage a little bit. And so you inevitably get to a point where it's like, hey, you know, that theme there, even if we come back to that sadness a little bit, at least we know we can get away with it from it if we want. I think harmonically, musically, that's very powerful there. I've also mentioned the piano and the guitar parts, leads, how they interacted with each other later on. I just ultimately think it kind of reflects the lyrics and the way it was sung really well, and the instrumental performance was really tight without a note out of place. Finally, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering was really, really solid. I thought it was really sick tone to the drums, guitar, bass, synths, pianos. There's a lot of instruments in there, but they were well niched in the frequency spectrum and stereo field there. The vocals as well with the double tracking were nice and bright, and they shone and they shimmered in the mix. There was dynamic range to it. Things came down in the latter half just before the last sort of chorus section there. We allowed things to become a bit quieter there, where there was variations in the intensity, perceived loudness of the track as well, which makes it a bit more kind of like less kind of draining to listen through 6 minutes of it. And ultimately, it was nice and loud without pumping though, so there was no note out of place. It also sounded like an actual drum kit, like recorded with like a rock band. It had an interesting sort of hi-hat tone there. I listened to a lot of sampled stuff, like sample drum kits played by electronic drums or like fixed in post, right? And it's nice to just hear people playing their instruments. It's kind of a bit of a boomer take, but I stand by it. But that's effectively my review of this track from an actor named Wu Bai China Blue, titled White Dove, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and our YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever with crazy stuff going on in the world. I don't know what my hand movements are today, and I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.